I'm actually pausing my Google. I say, hey, beep, play Star Trek music, or play Buck Rogers in the 25th Century music, or play Battlestar Galactica music. That's what I usually do when I say, and it's pretty much consistent with the same songs they play over and over, which is like Pirates of the Caribbean, RoboCop, sometimes James Bond, a lot of Star Trek. Right now it's playing the Inner Light theme, which is possibly one of the best. It's tougher to say because the Inner Light is very, very poignant and beautiful and whatever. And if you ever watch Star Trek Picard, you will hear the little tiny flute at the end of the opening credits, which is harken back to the Inner Light when he gets the little flute from that little mind thing that he had, where he had his entire other life with the whole family. It's my top 5 favorite episodes. Relics in there, Best of Both Worlds, Measure of a Man, Inner Light, and Tapestry. My top 5 favorite TNG episodes of all time. There's a lot of more, but so I paused that music that was just playing because I wanted to talk to you guys. so I just wanted to preempt that with a tangent to say I was listening to the Inner Light Suite, which somebody took that little 2-minute clip. And if you remember, if you watched TNG as much as I did, so there's the Inner Light episode where he learned how to play that little flute thing on that, mind space for a whole life. And then he had a girlfriend. Jean-Luc had a girlfriend. I don't think it was the same season. I think it was the season after, who played the piano, that rollout piano. And they went hardcore on the Inner Light thing. But somebody else outside of the Star Trek universe took that Inner Light Suite, they call it, and Google it on YouTube, because it is seriously, it's a wonderful little piece of music that was just from the Inner Light, where it was just him playing flute. And now you got the whole orchestral movements, and it's just a wonderful piece of music. It's up there as I would say it for emotional substance, because it reminds me of the episode, and the episode was just fantastic. It reminds me of Aaliyah's theme from Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which is a beautiful piece of music. Like, for all the meh things about Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and I'm one of the few people that really actually like Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the music soundtrack is fantastic. It's where we get the Klingon theme, like that they used through all the series. Like, like, it's great. But that came from the motion picture. The Enterprise theme that they used in the opening credits of TNG, the motion picture, but when they're revealing the Enterprise, the build up, the crescendo, as they say, and then they come around the corner and there's the Enterprise, and that song, the Enterprise theme, is the theme of the Next Generation, and basically anything that has Star Trek Enterprise in it, that's the theme that plays. They didn't go back to the original series, they bring snippets of the opening score of the original series. And then they go on to, the Space, the Final Frontier. But the TNG theme was the Enterprise theme from the motion picture. And they've used that over and over and over again. So, so many tangents. I had something else completely to talk about, but I'm going to cap this off by one more thing, where I've already talked to my friend Dave. Well, we were actually posting online because I posted Superman, the theme, which is just fantastically awesome. But the end credit theme for Generations, and Generations isn't the best movie at all. It wasn't bad. It wasn't the worst. I would say not even 5 is the worst now after Nemesis. I like them all. I have my favorite 6. 6 is better than 2, straight up. And if you're a Star Trek fan, in my opinion, 6 has to be better than 2. There are many, many deficiencies about 6. Many things that could have been done better than 6, because they just Shatnerized some things in there, and it just drove me nuts. But 6 overall for a story in the Star Trek universe is a perfect story in the Star Trek universe. Star Trek 2 is a revenge episode. It was the Vengeance of Khan originally. And don't get me wrong, Ricardo, it's like chewed every scene that he was in, and the 2 is a fantastic. I've seen it a million times, and but for Star Trek itself in universe, 6 is a far better Star Trek episode than 2. 2 is my second favorite, obviously. 4 I adore. 3 I really love the 3 because it leads from 2 to 4. 3 is got some really good Star Trek themes in it about sacrifice and all that stuff. 3 is fantastic. It's a really good, again, a really good Star Trek episode. Not as good as 6. 6 was exactly a TOS episode. It was a private little war, as they say, if you get that reference. Star Trek 6 is a TOS episode. And it was Gene Roddenberry's vision of why he started Star Trek in the first place. It was a parable of what we're going through now. Star Trek 2 is not a parable. It was just a great story, lots of action, and Ricardo Montalban. but 6 is definitely a Star Trek story based on, like, I won't say cut for cut, obviously not cut for cut, but it was a private little war, and the end state of that is basically what happens after a private little war. One, I love 1. The visual aesthetics. Yes, you fall asleep during the cloud, whatever, but the potential. And again, my problem is I see potential. I don't see it as a completed product. I saw the potential in 1, and again, without 1, you're not going to get the 2. so whatever it is, 1 could have been so much better had if you read the behind the scenes of Star Trek The Motion Picture, when the actors who know these characters were telling the director, Robert Weiss, a fantastic director, The Day the Earth Stood Still is still one of my favorite movies, the black and white version, the Keanu Reeves version, man, but the black and white version of A Day the Earth Stood Still is a brilliantly fantastic science fiction movie. It's Klaatu Barada Nikto. It's a brilliant movie for its day. I will watch it anytime it's on TV. But this guy is a fantastic director, but he had no concept, no consideration, no appreciation, no love, no whatever you want to say, je ne sais quoi, of the substance of Star Trek, which was disappointing. Forget the uniforms, they're crap. Enterprise, gorgeous. It's it's between TOS and the motion picture as my favorite Enterprise. When they brought it back in Picard in that one scene, it's just like, yeah, I'm with Picard's kid. It is my favorite models of starship ever in the history of all starships, and including outside the Star Trek universe. I mean, I love the Eagles from Space 1999, brilliantly thing. I love the Star Furies from Babylon 5. Adore the Star Furies from Babylon 5. I love, like, the Black Hole, fantastic ship. I've seen. I don't think there's too many science fiction ships that I don't know about. Fire Serenity, but the Enterprise in the motion picture is my favorite. And yes, it was sci-fi porn, if you want to call it that. The flybys, and this leads to another tangent before I get into what I'm talking about. But yeah, Aaliyah's theme is fantastic. Inner Light theme, redone to orchestral levels, is beautiful. The end march of Star Trek Generations is one of my favorite things every time I hear it. But I was going to talk about. Already slipped my mind. so I won't talk about it. I can't remember now. It was terribly important, but I forgot it now. So what I came to talk about 9 minutes into this is on my Facebook, I belong to a lot of groups. And a lot of Lego building groups, clearly, and a lot of classic space groups, and a lot of Blacktron groups, and a lot of... You can't believe that there's the classic space. There's not one classic space group on Facebook. There's like dozens of them, and I belong to a lot of them. And over the years, I think I've talked about this before. Over the years, I have seen other builders take. I won't say it's an homage, but they take an impetus from the classic space layout that I built. And I can't even say like my classic space layout was based on Blacktron Intelligence Agency, but I don't think I built a single thing in my layout that was a direct reference to anything that was built in the Blacktron Intelligence Agency. If you want to see a really good video, and it's really old, my buddy Joe Mino made it, just go on YouTube and type in Blacktron Intelligence Agency. it's just, I mean, it's old, it's grainy, but it's wonderful. And I don't even know the builder, Brian something or whatever, which inspired me and Greg Highland, which I mentioned the other day, inspired me to make my own classic space layout. So there was two inspirations there to start a classic space layout. But the impetus of Blacktron Intelligence Agency for me was to build a space layout. There was nothing specific about the Blacktron Intelligence Agency. They said, oh, I want to build that, you know, homage or whatever in my layout. And I will also say this. The Blacktron Intelligence Agency was built 25 years ago, minimum. I don't know when it was built. It was built a long time ago. And the builder was fantastic. Lots of nice greebles, not over greebled, but perfect number of greebles for me. And lots of monorail track, always good to have. And a very nice build. But like a fantastic, I remember seeing pictures on LugNet back in the day. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but you can still find a video online, I believe. But I will say, and I built my classic space layout years after that. Like Jeff and I started in 2007, and that was not even like building buildings and something. It was just a bunch of ships on base plates and at a show. And it wasn't until 2009 and 2010 when building started really ramping up on the classic space layout. And so I was well after building my tower and my layout, well after the Blacktron Intelligence Agency. And I will say this. The Blacktron Intelligence Agency had a lot more fine details in their layout than I had in my layout, and that's perfectly acceptable. I have my style of building, which is very, very stark, non-greebled, and bricks on top of bricks, and other people have a different way of building. But again, I do not have any direct homages to the Blacktron Intelligence Agency or anything else. I mentioned that my inspirations for the layout, the rocket pad was just inspired by Jeff, straight up, because Jeff built a rocket. He said, hey, Dave, here's a rocket for your layout. And I said, woo! And for the longest time, that rocket just sat on a base plate until I built the gantries and the launch platform for it. And I was happy I did. So I'm very happy. So the rocket platform was completely inspired because Jeff gave me a rocket. The habitat, I will say, was completely inspired by Jeff's habitat. We needed something to fill that area one time, and Jeff showed up with this habitat, and he checking with me for a long time, and like the monorail levels and whatever, and he showed up, and that was him for a bunch of shows, his habitat. I felt guilty that I had his habitat with me and all those cool parts were with me, so I built my own habitat. And so the habitat, I would say, was a direct inspiration from Jeff's habitat, and I didn't have any problem with that. So thank you, Jeff. So this is where this is going. My monorail station was inspired by me hanging out in Toronto sometimes and taking the subway around. Pete and I, my buddy Pete and I, back in high school, used to go to Toronto once every other month on a Friday, skip school, don't tell anybody. And we would go to hang out in Toronto for the day, and we took the subway back and forth. We went and found a lot of those eclectic shops where you could buy movie paraphernalia and poster shops and stuff. I bought my motion picture. I used to have Star Trek 1 through 6 posters. I got rid of them all, Valley Village. I used to have a ton of Star Trek posters, got rid of them all. But we went to a poster shop in the East End in Toronto, took the subway over there. So I remember being in a lot of different subway stations back in the day. And I thought, if you're going to have a train station, a monorail station, it has to kind of look like a subway station for me. And so that's why you'll see lots of stripes in the subway station, because every time I was in a subway station, that's what I saw in the tiles. So that was what that was inspired by. I also wanted it to look kind of airy, like a little bit not square. I don't know what I was going for originally when I put the angles on, because again, it was only the one level at the start, the bottom level, the long one, with the sloped edges, the ends on it, because I thought that looked cool. And then when I put the second part on top, I said, I'm just going to continue that slope all the way across, but still have that gap there in the area where there's no monorail track. Because I wanted it to look like it was space built. Like you don't have to have all the supports that are needed with gravity. And so I kind of have like a tree-ish kind of thing. A lot of air in it, or space between the bottom and the top, that people say, hey, how's that thing staying together? How's that thing, supported? I will say that it was a great idea in concept, and it looks great, but that's the weakest thing in the entire layout, because it breaks a lot. And then, yeah, we get to the tower, and the tower evolved, and I got to tell this story many, many, many times, but if you haven't heard it, I'm sure most people here have heard it, but in 2009 or 2008, I had built what I call like levels, okay? From base plate to 12 bricks high is level 0, and then level 1 and 2 and 3 go up, and those are just 10s, because the monorail track with the slope go up 10 bricks at a level. So anyway, all my buildings are built that way, and the base level is 12 bricks high, because that allows the monorail to skim over the top of the crater plates, which is different than the moon base stuff, the moon base standard, because moon base does not take into consideration clearing the top of the crater plates, and I use crater plates, and I need to clear them. If you notice, my train track on the layout is 2 bricks higher than the base plate, because it has to clear over all the craters that it's driving over. So it's 12, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. So I showed up with a building at a show years ago, 2007 or 2008, and it was basically, here's where we get into this again. This piece here, it's the oldest piece in the layout. This piece here, and there was 2 of them, one in front, one in the back, and then there was 2 landing pads coming off, coming off the side. So this is the front. The back was virtually identical, and then I had 2 landing pads that were 22 studs up, because it was on top of the roof here. And so this is 22 studs to the roof here, and I had 2 base plates, 2 landing pads, I should say, suspended in air, which I thought that was great, as a start. And people liked it. And I'm going, oh, but it's not done yet. I didn't like it. So I got home and I rebuilt it. And then between Brick World Chicago, where that building showed up in Chicago, which was only 3 layers tall, from Brick World Chicago in 2010 to Brick Fat 2011, that tower got built, rebuilt, and rebuilt at least a dozen times. And I took lots of pictures to put on my Flickr channel. Bored to crap out of everybody having too many pictures on my Flickr channel. But basically, I had the tower up to the top of this layer here, except the landing pads were not round. I just used those 6x14 wing plates, whatever, and clicked them over the base plates, because then it was sort of octagon-ish shaped, but it was round enough. But they didn't look great. They looked too flimsy. So that was Brick Fat 2011. And this layer wasn't here. The monorail layer, the monorail stuff wasn't there at all. And so I kept on rebuilding it, and I kept on rebuilding it, and I kept on rebuilding it. 2012, 2013, 2014, until I got the cake topper on it. And the landing pads were round, and they were either built into the diamond or they were far away from the diamond, whatever. And I had to find a balance, because if they were too far out, it would look too hokey, and they were way too droopy. And if they're too far in, then they're part of the tower, and then it looks like too narrow. So it took a long time for me to find a balance that I liked, and the ability to take this whole thing apart and put it in a box. So over years, possibly over a decade, from 2007 to 2017 at one of the last Brick Fets, this tower was done, quote unquote done. Is it ever done? No. We'll say it's done enough for a show. And everything now is just cosmetic and wiring and blah, blah, blah. So the look of the tower here is what the tower still looks like now. There are some subtle changes, but that's just because I rebuilt it so many times, I had the lighting and blah, blah, blah. But I did not know it was going to look like this. And I keep on saying that. I did not know it was going to look like this when I started in 2007. I had no concept about what the final state was going to be. But every time I built it, I said, it's not right. It's just not right. It's not the way I want it. And I go up and take it apart, take this part apart, take that part apart, rebuild it. And things are falling on the floor. Until I put the cake topper on it, the very final thing in 2017 or 2016, boom. I said, and I stepped back and I said, it's done now. The tower looks exactly like it should. But again, 5 seconds before, I had no idea. The inspirations for the tower as well that I wanted to incorporate into the tower was the landing pads that are sticking out a la Empire Strikes Back, Cloud City, because that was an inspirational movie when I was younger. Saw Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Millennium Falcon lands on that landing pad way out there, and they have this gantry to cross over to the rest of the city, and it's hanging out there, nothing. I wanted that concept here. I also wanted 2001, the space station that's orbiting Earth. I wanted something like that. That's the observation deck. Also the CN Tower. So those 3 big things that inspired me to make the tower kind of look like this. So I had to put those 3 things together: Empire Strikes Back, Cloud City, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the CN Tower. So in the end, now I'm happy with it. And as you can see, I'm happy with it because I keep on bringing it to shows. So anyway, my whole point is that this was not inspired at all by any other Lego build that I've ever seen. I don't remember. I mentioned the curved roof pieces. I first saw and only saw in one of our train layouts. I think it was a Kellum building. It could have been a Derrick building, but I think it was a Kellum building, where it was a rectangle cube skyrise, downtown Toronto kind of building, but the entranceway kind of curved out from the building because they used those 4x9 wing plates. And I said, ooh, and there was like 5 of them. That was it. And I'm going, that's awesome. So that inspired me to try to make circles with wing plates. That one thing that showed up in one of our train layouts inspired me to try to make circles. And so I tried with the 16x16. I mean, the 4x8. That's all these guys are 4x8 wing plates. You need 16 of them to make a full circle. And then I tried the 4x9 wing plates. You need 36 of them to make the full circle. And I even tried up here in the cake toppers, just a 4x4 wing plate. And you need 8 of them to make a full circle. It looks more like an octagon, but whatever. So as soon as I did that, and I remember the first time I built the landing pad, there's a picture again on my Flickr channel where I built this thing around a landing pad, and I put a Galaxy Explorer on top. Said, that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So then I had to build four of them. And then I built the observation deck. Fantastic. And then everything else, so this thing was one of the last things I built, was the monorail station around this. That was a little more difficult because it doesn't have a lot of structural support. But then people look at it from a distance and they see circles in Lego, which is fantastic. Anyway, but this was not inspired. The tower itself, the complete tower, was not inspired by literally anything specific in the world. The beginnings of it was inspired by the 5 wing plates that was in that building, this apartment building that was in one of our layouts, train layouts, and Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back, the CN Tower, and 2001. And so I thought it was very unique in all Lego builds. Now it's this, I'm going to say this, and this is not demeaning or derogatory or putting down. It's quote unquote a very simple build. It really honestly is. Any Lego person with any kind of experience could build this now. Just by looking at this picture, they could build this, right? It's not a complicated build. It's just a build that has thousands of the exact same part in order to build it. I needed lots of 1x4 hinge bricks or hinge plates. I needed lots of 4x9 wing plates. I need lots of 3x4 slopes and 2x3 inverted slopes, blah, blah, blah. Lots of basic pieces in here. And it's straight up old school building. It's bricks on top of bricks on top of bricks on top of bricks all the way up. There's hardly any greebles. There's hardly any snot. I don't think there's any snot in here. The only thing that's even remotely interesting is that these trans yellow panels are upside down. That's it. That's it. And it's pretty easy to build them in there because these panels just click on top, but you have to invert these ones. And so they're inverted, right? So how do you invert a trans yellow panel? Pretty easy. So it's not demeaning. It's not, I get it. It's not a complicated Greeble build. It's just a lot of pieces that, and it took years to get there. But I'm not a Greebler. I am not a person who wants a lot of spikes and antennas and like Greebles on it. I have a few in here, and that's good enough for me. I like the aesthetic of cleanliness, of simplicity, of clarity for my builds. That's not to say that I don't love other people's very, very Greeble builds. I've mentioned this before numerous times. One of my favorite mocks of all time, without a shadow of a doubt, was Jeff's hockey rink spaceship. It was utterly inspirational, fantastic. The functionality, the layout, like literally everything about that hockey rink spaceship was fantastic. And Jeff's one of my most inspiring builders. Easily one of my most inspiring. I said 2 people, Jeff and Jeannie. So this is all going somewhere, by the way, because I just want to make the point that the whole tower was not inspired by anything specific. Fine. So, and it did surprise me, although looking back at it, it shouldn't have surprised me. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. I was in one of my groups that I just talked about, all these classic space groups that we have and all these other groups that I belong to, and some guy, and I can't remember where in the world, Italy, so I don't know, not in this continent, I don't think, had built a very, very similar tower. Like it was uncannily, but it wasn't exact, but it was very, very close, almost the same height. The bottom was a little wonky. I don't think he had all the pieces that I had, but it had exactly the same contours all the way up, the diamond in the middle, the 4 landing pads, blah, 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 the observation deck, blah, blah, all the way up. And it was classic space. And it looked just like this, but he didn't have all the trans yellow that I have. Not too many people out there have all the trans yellow I have. And I said, that's fantastic. I'm not one of these guys, overall, I'm not one of these guys that said, you can't rip me off, because it's not ripping me off. It's subtly different. And I can't remember if that person gave me credit. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. I saw it. I said, that's beautiful. And so I promptly should have bookmarked it. Promptly forgot about it. lost all track of it. About 4 months ago, I think I even posted on my Facebook, there was another person over across the pond in Europe somewhere who built basically this tower, except twice as tall. Instead of having these little tiny areas between the end of the slopes and the beginning of the slopes, he had like a big wide space in there, like 1.5 feet, and then he had 1.5 feet there, and he had a foot. So it was a really tall tower, but it had exactly the same observation deck and the diamond and this bottom part, basically the same. But he had a lot of space between them, so it was like really tall, and he put it on the floor and the train track and whatever else. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Again, doesn't have all the trans yellow that I have, but again, nobody does. And I said, that's very, very nice. And I think that person actually said, yeah, I was inspired by you, which is nice. Not that I need it, but it was very nice. Just the other day, I was going through my Blacktron, and I'm going to preempt that specific story by giving you this tangent straight up. At least 10 years ago, I was between BrickFat, I don't know, 13 or 14. I'm having a chat with my very good and dear friend Janie, who I'm very happy for now, but I've always been happy for her, but I'm especially happy for her now. Anyway, so I'm talking to my very good friend Janie, and we were talking about what we want to do, where we want to go, what we're going to do in the future. And I said, future state, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have zones on the layout, maybe a 10 by 10 or whatever, and the tower would be right in the middle, and this quadrant would be classic space, and that quadrant would be Blacktron, and that quadrant would be Mtron, and this quadrant would be whatever, Ice Planet 2002. like four quadrants, and the tower would be right in the middle, and the monorail would be going through all of them, but every one of them would have their unique look to them. Blacktron with the trans yellow, black and yellow, M-tron with the red, black, and trans neon green, and Ice Planet white, blue, and trans neon orange, and then Classic Space, right? And just quadrants, and have this style of spaceships in each one of those quadrants, style of the buildings different in each one of those buildings. And I thought that would be a good thing for me, because I can try to build in all the different things. And what I was going to do with the tower itself, I was going to divide it into quadrants itself. So this landing pad would be like Classic Space, that would be Blacktron, that would be M-tron, and that would be Ice Planet. And then the building itself, because you could do it, you could just build 1/4 of it in the specific colors. And I thought in my head, that sounds like a great idea. But then I talked to an artist, and she says, that would look like crap. And I stopped and think about it. I thought about it, and I said, you're absolutely right. Having the tower 1/4 at a time at different colors would look absolutely eclectic and not in a good way. So I kind of kiboshed that idea. I said, no, don't have to do it. Never got around to it. But I did think at some point that I was going to have different zones on the layout. This is the Classic Space zone, and then 10 base plates over is the Futron area, and then over there is going to be whatever. And then you can start building buildings for the rest of it, and just have this big, huge layout of all the different space sets from 1978 to 1999. And I was really gung-ho on that idea in my head for the longest time, because I said, this would look awesome in Blacktron colors, Blacktron 1 colors, black, yellow, and trans yellow, because it looks great with blue, gray, and trans yellow. And again, I've recolorified the Renegade and the Batrax to Classic Space, and I've made the Galaxy Explorer into Blacktron. This was going to be an awesome idea to go with Blacktron, with this kind of tower, or something that's not exact replica, because even though I'm lazy sometimes, I want to rebuild what I've already built, I was going to try something else. But I thought Blacktron colors would be awesome, because yellow and black, and to light it up, oh, the chef's kiss. So but I never got around to it, because my life, the way it is. But it's always been in the back of my head. And so it did not at all phase me the other day, and I put a link on my Facebook tonight. So if you're on my Facebook, you can go look at it. A guy in Europe built basically this tower, I would say almost brick for brick, at least a major section of it, except a lot more greebles. Awesome. But he made it in Blacktron. So the entire, wherever you see blue is black, and wherever you see gray is yellow, basically. He hasn't gotten around to building the landing pads yet, which I was a little disappointed with. But he even has the same connector sticking out of the diamond. the Technic being coming out of the diamond. Like, it's an exact replica of at least this section here, and the observation deck. What he did do on the observation deck, which I thought was brilliant, is that, so this is, he took basically this idea down here with the walkway all the way around for the train station, is he put that on the top of the observation deck. So he's got a railing on top of the so he's got the trans yellow kind of canopies, and he's got the walkway on top of that. And his cake topper is like one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. And it reminded me of Blacktron Intelligence Agency with the greebling and everything that he did. Like the top of his tower is the chef's kiss. But you could just see this in his. And I said, it would be nice. It would be nice to get kind of a gallery of all the various towers et al. That were inspired by the OBBCSL, because it's not that I'm taking credit for it, because I think I'm not one of the most inspiring people on the planet, because I'm not an inspiring person. But the fact that I've come across at least 3 other layouts thus far that have that thing in it that other people have. What's that? It's not. the best form of flattery. I can't remember the exact. Oh, for crying out loud! Plagiarism is the best form of flattery. No, it's. There's another nicer and better way of saying this. That this caused inspiration in others, I think, is fantastic, and the fact that they ran with it and built something better in their way and their building technique, wonderful. And then we can get into the discussion, because this is where I've had to talk from a few people, more than a few people. Should I get credit for it? Now that's a tough one for me, because I've never been in literally anything for credit. I've never cared. It's never been who I am. If I've done something that inspires somebody else, that's the chef's kiss. But I've never been here saying, "Ooh, they have to like acknowledge who I am, and like, you know, pay homage to me." No, I've never been that guy. But on the flip side, you know, you read the comments, "Oh, that's so awesome and that's so inspiring," and blah blah blah. And I'm going, "Yeah, it is inspiring," because I was inspired. It was directly inspired by something else, and it's like. But I've never been that petty. I've never been that person. I've never been one for, and I'm gonna go with a quick tangent right there. I've always wanted, not necessarily the wizard in the Wizard of Oz. I never wanted to be him, because he was a charlatan, as they say. He acted like he knew everything, and he acted like he was all powerful, and he acted like he had all that stuff arranged and knew what he was doing. But in the end, he was a klutz. In the end, he was a doofus. In the end, he didn't know what he was doing more than anybody else knows what they're doing. There were smarter people in the Wizard of Oz than the Wizard of Oz. For example, the Scarecrow was smarter than the Wizard of Oz. All three of them, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, all three of them had what the Wizard of Oz lacked. And the bottom line is, for all three of them, integrity. All three of them had integrity. Yes, the brains, the heart, and the courage, but all three of them also had, as we watched through the entire movie, integrity, which the wizard did not have. He was a bloviator. He was a talker. He was like, I think I know what this button does, and if I push it, something's going to happen. I've never been one to want to be in the limelight. I've always wanted to be behind the curtain. That's where I do get my inspiration from the wizard, because it's not that I'm not worthy of the limelight. It's just that it's not that I shy away from it either. Because if you put me in front of a microphone, I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk, but I don't have to talk. I could sit there at a show and appreciate other people running the show. I don't need to be front and center. I don't have to be the center of attention. And I've never gone out of my way to be the center of attention. I would never walk into a party to try to be the center of attention. It's not who I am. I'm more mano a mano, one-on-one. When I used to go to parties, I would show, "Hey, Dave's here. Yay, Dave's here." And "Hey, Dave," because people know me. And I walk into the show, I walk into the party, and blah, blah. And then within 10 minutes, I will be sitting in the corner talking to somebody. I'm going to talk for 3 hours. So that's what happens. That's what happened with me at parties. I don't have to be the center. I don't have to be the magician. "Hey, look, I'm going to pull this rabbit out of my hat." I don't have to be the center of, "Hey, karaoke." No, none of that. People don't have to look at me at all. So, although I do make these videos. But again, it's me talking to my phone. So it's not like I got 1,000 people out there. When I was a kid, I've always had a difficulty talking in front of an audience. That's kind of mostly gone away. It's just like I kind of has this laissez-faire about it. If there's a microphone there and I have to talk, if you go way back on my YouTube stream, you'll see the time that I was on TV, Cable 14, doing a little spot for the Toy Train Adult Show. I think it was a Christmas train show that we did, or the Spring Train Show. I can't remember which one, but I was on Cable 14 for 5 minutes or 30 seconds. And I think I handled that pretty well. Sandy could tell I was nervous. I was nervous. My first time doing that kind of stuff. But I think I handled it very well. And now that I'm older, sure, whatever. If you need somebody to step up and be the MC, I'll be it. I won't be a great one, but there's somebody talking to the microphone. So, but I do not go to my way. I have certain friends that want to be the center of attention. That when we're having a party, they're telling the stories and everybody's gathering around them, which is fantastic. And I love that about them. And I'd rather be them than me. So I will say, and I've said this before, when I was called up for that at Bricks and the Six, I was misty-eyed to begin with, because it was like an acknowledgement that I did not expect, nor was I prepared for. So, and everybody who was there that was applauding for me has inspired me in the past. Like literally everyone that was there that was acknowledging that what for me to break the six. But anyway, this was going. So I'm not one that wants the limelight. I've never been that guy who wants the limelight. I want to be the guy in the background. And again, with that is my whole lifestyle. As Gandalf would say, expect to see me when you see me. I'm going to show up when I show up. I don't have a lot of rhyme or reason or a lot of projected stuff that I'm going to do this on this specific day. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. So, and I've managed my life this way for 56 years. And my dad's always used to say, "You be late to your own funeral." It's kind of a morbid thing to say, but because my life gets in the way of my life, and I've always kind of liked it that way, because in some instances it works out quite well for me, because again, being in IT and whatever, I could be called, the phone could ring right now and I'd have to drive somewhere and fix it. That's the kind of life I've always had. I won't say it's a vagabond or a nomadic life, because I'm very settled in this house. So I don't want to be like, I've had some friends. I have a cousin, oh, it's my dad's cousin, who is a bunch of years older than me, who has never had a single fixed address in his entire life. He moves from spot to spot. I'm going to work here for a few months, or maybe a year or two. I'm going to go over there, all over the world. And sometimes he shows up here and he regales us of his stories of on the road, right? And that's inspirational, but not conducive for me to jump on that bandwagon. I'm happy for him, and he loves it. And I want to know where my bed is. I want to know where my Lego collection is. I want to know where my friends are. So anyway, I am not in this for accolades. I am really not. And that's why I keep on saying to you guys, do not like and subscribe if you don't want to like and subscribe. I don't need to say, hey, like and subscribe, because I want to get my count up. I'm not here. That's for me only. I get some other people are making a living off this, and they want to make a living off this, and I support them. I'm a Patreon for some people out there that I want to watch and listen to. And I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and I do like and subscribe a lot of YouTube videos, because not only because they say it, because I want to support them. For me, I don't need it. This is not an income stream for me at all. I want people to be here because they want to be here. And I'm going to be here whether you like and subscribe or not. So what's the matter to me? And so I look at it that way. For me, it would be 100% ego if, oh, look, I got 10,000 subscribers. I mean, I have 880. and I do appreciate that. Like, don't get me wrong. I do appreciate people who do like and subscribe, but it's not a necessity for my sense of self. And it's not one of the reasons why I make these videos, is to get like and subscribes. Because that's not what this specific channel is for. This specific channel is for, hey guys, this is what I'm interested in talking about today for 43 minutes. So there are at least 3 other people out there who have borrowed, let's just say, just use a nice word for it, borrowed, or have been inspired by the CSL. And for me, on a meta level, I think that is awesome. And I never would have thought about anything else besides that. And yet, I keep on running into people and sometimes the thought does drift across my head for whatever reason, that it would have been nice, just a little blurb, a little link to my YouTube channel or one of my videos, like I have whatever at the top of my about page is the video that Pete made, which I think is good enough for anybody, to just have a link to and say, hey, this is what inspired me. I usually try to, and I keep on forgetting to put links in, but when I talk about somebody like Jeff's Rocket or Jeff's Builds, I say, hey, Jeff's rocket ship inspires me. Jeff's, like, the spaceship made out of hockey rinks inspired me. I used the name, hey, Jeff, you inspired me. And if you need more details, I'm sure I'll get them to you. If you want to see his spaceship, hockey spaceship, I think there's a link to his Flickr and or Brick Shelf channel. I can't remember when he put it up, but it's awesome. And if he wants to post it in the comments, thanks, Jeff. Do my work for me. So, but maybe I'll go looking for it tonight and I'll put it in the comments. When I talk about my inspirations, I lay them out. This is what inspired me to do this. And when I'm inspired by a person, like I've talked a million times about Derek and me with the copperized monorail track, which started this whole thing, by the way. And it was awesome. Just I remember that exact moment when I powered the rails and the motor started moving. I'm going, this is going to, and that was 25 years ago. I would say over 20 years. I don't think Sandy was around yet. And she's been in my life for 20 years now. So it was before then. And it was before I was doing classic space layouts. Straight up. I started doing classic space layouts after I met Sandy. I wasn't making classic space layouts before Sandy. When I think about that, I've actually known Sandy longer than I've been doing public classic space shows. And so, but when I get inspired by people, I get enthusiastic by hanging around people. I do miss some of the people that I used to hang around all the time, but life moves on and people drift over there and I'm over here and I get it, but those people are missed. And I do know straight up, and I've said this my entire life, even before Lego and the internet and whatever else like that, that people would drift in and drift out of my life my entire life, even when we were kids. Like the best friends that I had when I was 4, okay, I still have one of them, but the rest of them, not too many people can say that. The rest of them have moved on. They moved over there. They moved over to Europe, wherever they're in the world. And even family, like when I was a kid, I grew up with all my cousins and I saw them every single day because they're living next door and we go to school together, whatever. I haven't seen my cousins in years now. Because we're not doing the Christmas parties anymore. We're not doing the birthdays and getting together and whatever. And I will say this: this is the part of my life, 56, where it's getting to be. It's the people that mean more to me than anything else. And thankfully, straight up, I have just, honest to goodness, I keep on saying this, the best friends ever to hang out with anyway. So the friends that and most of my friends that I've known since high school. so it's like, it's awesome for me. So, and we have no drink tonight. We have I just got to drink. Friend. Awesome. So anyway, I get stuff. I honestly get stuff. And I love people who just casually. I will show you this while we're talking about it. I think it's here. I hope it's here. No, sorry, it's not here. Dun, dun, dun. It's in the layout, in the boxes. My friend Jeff, not that Jeff, the other Jeff, my friend Jeff from Ottawa, we were doing, I think it was, maybe it was Bricks in the Six, or maybe another show, but he showed up and he had like that classic space button, the pin that goes through. And he gave me one. And it's like, oh my goodness. Like I get misty when that stuff, I was almost crying. I'm not Sally Field. Like, thank you so much. Like, I wasn't be like, but I couldn't talk. Like I was all verklempt. I was all like, it's very rare when somebody gets me to the point where I can't talk. So this is gonna be the final tangent tonight because it's already 50 minutes. And it's a complete tangent.
I won't tell you how the topic started, but this is one of my favorite stories about my dad, and my dad's still, thankfully, still here. He's 84. But my dad has been my inspiration basically my entire life. To this day, one of my role models, one of my peers, one of my just benchmark is up here. My dad, and most people at 56 do not have the admiration of their parents that I just happen to have from my dad. Like, so this world. My dad got me into scuba diving. And I still love diving, even though I haven't had a tank in my back in a couple of years. I find scuba diving as a sport was, since I was 14 years old, the most relaxing, serene, comfortable things I've ever done in my life. It's almost like laying in a nice warm bed. Like, I've gone diving, ice diving. I've done winter diving. I've done lots of stupid diving and whatever. That's all done. But my dad, I grew up. My earliest memories of my life is going to Tobermory, going to Manitoulin, going to Kingston, going to Brockville, going to Belleville with my parents, because they're both scuba divers, and so every long weekend we'd be going somewhere in Ontario for him and my mom's dive group, the Hamilton Submariners, and we'd be going all over the province, where there's some good dive sites. And I'd have a lot of friends there because all the dive people were married and kids, and they had kids the same age as us. So we're a huge gang of kids, and we get together every long weekend. We had a great time. It was nice, clean, wholesome, it was fun. Straight up, it was fun. And since I grew up in a small town, I didn't have any ideas about stupid, bad fun. This was just nice, clean. We played hide and seek. We played tag. We go for hikes. We played baseball. We did all that. Yes, it was just, I'm not saying Norman Rockwell, but it was pretty close to Norman Rockwell. It's a painting of my childhood. And so I grew up with scuba divers. I grew up hanging around scuba tanks and air fills and fins and masks and stuff. I had my first mask before my earliest memories. My dad bought it, this little mask and these little tiny flippers. And quick tangent on that. The story would go after, and I remember this part, but even when I was younger, I don't remember. But Mom and Dad would regale me of the stories. They had to stop in Wyerton to put a life jacket on me before they drove the final stretch to Tobermory. No, that's the old wives' tale. But the second we stopped at Big Tub Harbor and Dad was setting up the trailer, the pop-up, Bellevue 6, the pop-up, and getting the kids be out of sight, out of mind. But I'd be in the water in Georgia May in Big Tub Harbor. And if you ever been to Big Tub Harbor, Big Tub Lodge, back in the day when it was, when I was a kid, it seemed like a 12-foot drop between the cliff and the water, and the water is like 4 degrees, even in August. But I'm sure it was maybe 4 or 5 feet. But I would just, there's water, and I'd fall in. Like every single time we were at Tobermory, I'd fall into the water somehow, maybe on purpose, maybe subconsciously, whatever. I'd be in the water. So they had to stop and put a life jacket on me. It was a running joke before they stopped the car in Big Tub Lodge, because I'd be in the water within seconds. So it's like, put a life jacket on. Anyway, so I've been hanging around divers my entire life. And then Dad always told us, when I was the only one that was interested. Terry wasn't interested. Brian wasn't interested. I was 100% interested in scuba diving. I took my dad's snorkel program, because he ran a snorkel program when we were in Boy Scouts. I got my snorkel instructor certificate. Like, that helps. Snorkel instructor. But I went through the whole course from 1 to 4, and then snorkel instructor, whatever. But Dad always told us when we were growing up, because this is for him, he was the chief instructor of the Hamilton Submariners for a long time, and it's his. He didn't say this, but it was his reputation on the line to make sure that all his divers were qualified and fit and understood all the stuff about scuba diving so they wouldn't die. Because scuba diving, even for me, is one of the safest things that I've ever done when it comes to this kind of stuff. But just the term scuba diving, you're under the water and stuff can happen very, very fast. And you have to be trained to the point where you don't panic, and this stuff happens naturally, and you get yourself out of whatever situation you're in, and you're prepared for it. Boy Scouts always prepared. So my dad told us when we were growing up that we could not go scuba diving until we took the course. And I absolutely 100%, because I know the dangers of it, except I never had any, which is not true, but anyway. So one day, I'm 14 years old, and I wasn't allowed back then to take the scuba course until I was 16. I was 14 years old, and my dad would take Terry and me down to Lewis Road Beach every Saturday for an afternoon. He'd bring the lawn chair. I bring my inner tube. So I went down to the local shop down there, the local garage, and I said to the mechanic that took care of my dad's car, "Can you find me this is what we did back then." Like, seriously, I'm not saying it's a Little Rascals, because it's 5 decades after, but I went down there and said, "Can you find me an inner tube for a tractor?" "Sure." And the next time I went there, he had an inner tube for a tractor. "Here, Dave." And so I had this big giant inner tube that I would take down to the beach. And then we would build sometimes a little sandcastle on the beach. We'd go play in the water. Dad's reading the paper, because again, there was no internet back then, no phones back then, but Dad would bring the paper or a book. He loved reading, and we'd be down there for 3, 4, or 5 hours, Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock till whenever. And Terry and I would just have a blast on the beach. Brian's off at Guelph University, whatever, but we'd have a blast. And one time, I'm 14 now, Dad threw the scuba tanks in the car, and I'm going, "Why? My dad's going diving? Like, what is this?" And I think Terry was busy, so it was just me and Dad. And he takes me down the Lewis Road, and he brings the tanks down, he puts the rig, and again, if you know anything about scuba diving, you know that today's equipment is like all bells and whistles and buttons and computers and blah, 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 lots of hoses, lots of whatever. Back in the day, back in my dad's day, scuba diving was a tank, a single hose rig, and a regulator. That was it. Like maybe the horseshoe vest. Like my dad's certification at the beginning, there was no vest. Like you had to rely 100% on you. There's no BC, there's no air gauges, nothing. You had to listen to your tank to figure out when it's getting low. And there was the J valve, which again, if you know anything about scuba diving, there's a J and a K. The J valve had the little knobby pole that would give you an extra 300 pounds of air to get back up my dad taught me at an early age that the tank itself makes a sound while it's getting lower. And as the tank gets emptier from air, the tank gets lighter, which is fun, by the way. So when the tank starts pulling you up, you know the tank's getting empty. And so anyway, so he throws the tank and the regulator into the car. We drive down to the beach, and he sets it all up. And he goes, "Here, Dave, go at it." I'm just going to be sitting on the beach reading the paper. I go, "What?" "Yeah, you've hung around divers long enough. You know what to do." So I put the tank on. I had my mask, fins, and snorkel, and I put the tank on. And it was the time of my life. And this Lake Ontario was visibility. You put your hands on your mask, and you can't see your hands. I was a little better that day. So you had 3 or 4 feet visibility. And I'm out there harassing fish. I'm checking out rocks. This is pre-zebra mussels, which is a whole other story. And I just was out there for 45 minutes. I don't think I broke 4 feet of depth. But of course, there's no depth gauge because it's the old school. And then, time to go. And Dad goes, "You love it?" I said, "This is like the time of my life." Absolutely. The second I put the tank on, because I've snorkeled a lot, and I can like hold my breath for a long time back in the day, not now. I can harass the fish and then have to come back up for a puff of air. But the tank, a whole different, liberating, complete freedom experience. And so I was hooked immediately, but I knew I was going to be hooked because I've been hanging around divers for 14 years already. And then I got to take the course with my buddies, my Boy Scout buddies, Pete, Ron, Steve, Mark, the 5 of us. And we took the course with my dad's group. That's dive club, where he was chief instructor, but he didn't instruct us. We had the instructors instruct us. And it was 12 weeks. Yes. Back then, the scuba course was 12 weeks. And then there's an hour in the classroom to learn about Boyle's Law and dive tables and blah, 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 decompression and blah, blah, the bends, the nitrogen narcosis, all that stuff that I learned 50 years ago, 40 years ago, that I won't remember now. I could not fill out the dive table for the life of me. If you pay me $1 million, hey Dave, here's $1 million, do this dive table. Couldn't do it. I haven't done one in 3 decades, but because I don't do repetitive dives. But anyway, so we took the course. Then we had our open water in Lake Erie. Well, our first open water is in Lake Ontario, but then we went up to Lake Erie at Shirkston and went out to the boat way out there when there used to be a boat way out there before they ground it up and took the steel out. But so we did that, and ever since then, especially in my youth, 17, 18, 19, 20, I dove as much as possible because of my dad. I love my dad, but I dove literally all the time. And it's one of my favorite things to do as a hobby. This is my other favorite thing as a hobby, my woodworking. But scuba diving back then, I have 2 logbooks full of dives, and that's not even 1/10 of the dives I've been on that I didn't, because I didn't log 90% of them. My cousin Jim and I used to go scuba diving a lot. My buddy John and I used to go diving like a Tuesday afternoon. We finished work. We sit in Tim Hortons. What do you want to do? Let's go for a dive. And we went off the Gray's Road there in Stony Creek there and hopped in the water there for no reason other than just to get wet. So diving was fantastic. And I haven't done it. Hey, who's that?
Elena.
Hi, Elena. Hi. I'm happy to my video. You want to come say hi?
Sure. My dad's recording.
I'm recording a YouTube video.
I'll see you later.
Have a good vacation, Lena. So, I tried to get this kid to diving. He's a better swimmer than I ever was. This kid. So I put a tank on his back. He took the bubbles course because everything's different now. When he was, how old were you?
Bubbles course?
Yeah, 9, 10.
9.
So 5 years ago. And we went to Float and Flag, fantastic shop by the way in Burlington, Ontario. Float and Flag, the PADI certification, and they said, hey, he's young enough or old enough to do the bubbles, and they took us out to Brantford Pool out there, and we put a tank in his back, and he had a little bit of training. I was just there as an observer. There's a YouTube video, because I asked the instructor if I could bring my GoPro in the water. And then but I'm completely hands off because again, I'm not going to be that parent that's going to hover, and I'm not going to be that parent that tells the instructor what to do. Even though I've been diving for 50 plus years or 40 plus years, I ain't going to do it because I don't know the new stuff, and I want my kid to be as safe as possible. So I'm not going to be that parent that knows better than the instructor. Nope. This is great. The kid's yours. The kid's yours. I'm just going to be over here recording, and had a blast. But then a couple years back, we go up to our friend's cottage. I bring the tanks. He has his dive gear, and we hop in the water. And I'm lackadaisical, as they say. As I pick up a rock here, there's a little pop can over there. There's a fish over there. There's a lily pad there. I'm just like blah blah blah. He's like a bullet. He's like a torpedo. He's across the lake, and he. So not to talk about this right now. So I know because of my experience as a diver that stuff happens, and if you're not ready, stuff could go wrong very, very fast. And one of the things that they taught me, and I keep on remembering, is that when the rig pops out of your mouth, you're surrounded by water and you can't breathe water, and you have to find a rig. You have to find a rig quickly to get some air back into you. And so that's happened a few times where the rig pops out of my mouth. That usually doesn't happen, but it's happened. And I just put it back in, right? Don't even think about it. And so one of the things for the bubble course is that they teach some of these people were like old. So it wasn't for kids, although there was kids there. It's just your first, see if you want to go scuba diving, see if you like it. And you don't have to do the whole course, whatever expensive course. You can just do a weekend and you hang out in the pool. But I'm sitting there watching the GoPro, and you can see it. So he's in there with the instructor, and the instructor's like, take the rig out of your mouth, put it back in your mouth, clear the rig, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, blah, blah, piece of cake. And I never taught him any of this stuff. Like, I hung around scuba divers since I was a kid, so I kind of got some of it, but he doesn't, well, he's sort of hung around scuba divers, but he's just like, blah, yeah, take the rig out, put it back in, clear it, blah, blah, clear the mask, blah, blah. Clearing the mask is one of the hardest things to learn, by the way. I mean, it's second nature now, but when you first start clearing the mask, Anyway, so he's like swimming around, little kid swimming around. All of a sudden, the rag pops out of his mouth while he's, kicking his fins in the water. He's about 2 feet of water, and I'm watching him. I'm not panicking yet because I see the rags kind of hanging, and he does exactly what he's supposed to. He kind of leans that way. The hose falls into his arms. He sweeps up the hose, and all of a sudden the rags in his hand. He puts it in his mouth like it was just walking in the park. I have that on video. It's like, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, he wasn't taught that. And he just picks it up. And the water's 6 inches above his head, like a foot above his head. He could have just stood up. But yeah, he leans over, and there's the rag hose, and puts it right back in his mouth, and he keeps on going on. I said, oh, that of course, I was in the water anyway, but that brought a tear to my eye. So anyway, love that kid. Low power mode, we're already an hour over this. So I'm sure there's lots of tangents I didn't finish. I have been inspired by a great many people, and I do not mind being an inspiration for other people, and I don't need the credit for it. I've never needed credit for literally anything I've ever done. And if other people want to build, so if they like the tower so much that they want to build a copy of it or take their own take on it, absolutely knock yourself out. I'd like to know about it. I don't want to just stumble across it when I'm going through my Facebook channel. So just drop me a line. Or if you find something out there that kind of looks like it, hey Dave, I saw this, because that's how I found out 2 of these things. Overall, 99% of me says I don't need credit. It's just not who I. As honestly, it's never been who I am. And I like to be that guy. I like to be. My ego shouldn't be part of the equation of what other people build or who other people think. Yeah, that's it. So I've said it as clear as I possibly can. If you want to become my friend on Facebook, look me up, Sparky1701, or Dave K, whatever. You know who I am. And if you don't, you don't, and it's fine too. That's it. That's all. I'm going to go to bed now. Everybody out there, stay safe, take care, and an hour or 6. Wow, that's a little long. I could have broken this up. Take care.